Hello, how did you get on making your clocks yesterday? Do they look really good? Well done, that was quite a tricky bit of cutting yesterday, wasn't it? Today you had your counting and recording from 1 to 20 on your pets counting sheet. If you want to, you can press pause and go and do that now if you haven't done that already. We're going to be today looking at clocks again. So we've got the clock face and we've got the, what are these bits called again? The hands. They're called the hands, aren't they? Face and hands. If you're ever unsure, because to me, I always go to call these fingers. I always think they're called fingers because they look like fingers. If I remember the face that I drew of the little man with ears and eyeballs and a nose and hands coming out of his face, that helps me remember face and hands. Face and hands. So yesterday we noticed that on our clock, 12 is always at the top, 6 is always at the bottom, and the numbers go around the clock in a clockwise direction. But these hands help us tell the time, but I don't understand why one is really, really long and one is short. On some clocks, the long hand doesn't quite touch the numbers, but there's always one that's longer than the other. I was really struggling with that clock because both of the hands were black. I know one was shorter and one was longer, but they were both black and it was confusing me a little bit. With this clock, we've got the hour hand is red and the minute hand is blue. Hour and minute. So this blue hand tells us what minute we're on, and this red one tells us the hour. We're going to talk about the hour hand today. Hour hand. So, when the blue hand is on the 12, when it's pointing to the top of the clock, we say o'clock, o'clock. And before we say o'clock, we say a number. If the hour hand is pointing to number 9, and the minute hand is on 12. If it's on 12, we know it means o'clock. But what's the number that comes before the o'clock? 9 o'clock. How about this one? The minute hand's on the 12, so we know it's o'clock. And it's going to be, 4 o'clock. It means 4 of the clock, but people say, you probably heard them, 4 o'clock. Try this one now. How about this one? What's the time, Mr. Wolf? 1 o'clock. One more. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? Can you help me with this work, please?
This is an analogue clock. The blue highlighted area is called the clock face. The red lines are called hands. No, not these types of hands. We have two types of hands on the clock. This is the minute hand. The minute hand is the longer hand. The other type of hand is called the hour hand. This hand lets us know what hour it is, and it is the shorter hand. The numbers on our clock face represent the hours. Look at the minute hand zoom around the clock. We've sped up how long it would usually take. You will notice that both hands are spinning in the same direction. We call this clockwise. What's the time? When the longer hand, the minute hand, is pointing to the number 12, and the smaller hand, the hour hand, is pointing to one of the hour numbers, we call this o'clock. For example, when the minute hand points to 12 and the hour hand points to 1, we say it's 1 o'clock.
On my homework today, I've got lots of clocks, and this question here says, what's the time, Mr. Wolf? I've got to tell the time. Now, I can see, I've got black hands again. This is not going to be easy. So, it doesn't matter if they're the same colour. because one is longer and one is shorter. The longer one has to point to the 12 for o'clock. It only works when the big long one is pointing to the 12. So I know it's o'clock. Now I just need to find the number. So that's o'clock, and the short one is pointing to 7. So I know, that one's been done for me. That's a little example there. So 7, and that says o'clock. With this one, it's got o'clock there. The big long minute hand is pointing to 12, so it's definitely o'clock. So it must be 5 o'clock. 5. Let's look at this one. The minute hand's pointing to 12, so yes, that's o'clock, and it must be 3 o'clock. 3. Let's look at the next one. Okay, 9 o'clock. And this one, this is confusing. The long, it's hard to see there, so that's the middle of the clock, so that's the long one, that's o'clock. And the little one is pointing down to number 6, 6 o'clock. I'm going to do this last one with you. Can you have a look at it and tell me? The long hand's pointing to 12, so I know it's o'clock. Brilliant, thank you. You're right if you said 11. 11 o'clock. You've got some of these as your homework today. I'm going to leave you to get on with that homework now. If you find it too difficult, ask your parents to send me a quick message and we'll go over this part again tomorrow. Okay, just try really, really hard. Remember, the long hand points to the 12, which means o'clock, and the little hand tells us what hour it is. Sometimes I play this trick on my mum. Have a look. So, because you're teaching me and I'm teaching you, and we're both learning how to tell the time, this time is, let's just make that, so that's 12, pointing to the 12, which means it's o'clock, because the long one is pointing to the 12, so it must be 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. At my house, at 4 o'clock, I have a snack. Sometimes it's milk and cookies. That's my favourite one. What I did yesterday is I took this clock home, and when it was 4 o'clock, I said, "Mummy, it's 4 o'clock." And she said, "You can tell the time, well done. Let's get your milk and cookies." And then I had my milk and cookies, then I went to play, and then I crept downstairs, and the clock was changing. It was going round in a clockwise direction, and because there's no plastic on the front of this one, I did this. What time does that say? 4 o'clock. So a little while later, when it was 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, I changed the clock and said, "Mum, yes, darling, could I have my milk and cookies?" "You've already had your milk and cookies." "Oh, it's just that the clock's saying 4 o'clock. She says, okay. And she gave me another glass of milk and some cookies. So I had 2 lots because I changed the clock. Then she went out and she was digging something in the garden, and the clock was going round, and I changed it to this. And I changed it to 4 o'clock again. And then I called, "Dad?" "Yes." "Is it time for milk and cookies, please?" "You've had it already. It's not 4 o'clock. It's already gone past 4 o'clock. "Oh, could you come and look at the clock, please?" And then in comes Daddy. "Oh, it does say 4 o'clock. I must get your milk and cookies." So then I had my mummy's milk and cookies, then I had milk and cookies again, and then I changed the time again, so it just kept saying 4 o'clock, and I had 3 lots of snack yesterday. That was quite cheeky. So it's quite helpful if you can learn to tell the time. Good luck with your work, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.